So, at last, we can start on episodes 2 and 3 of the trilogy of Cohnirri Space. Those 2 and 3. Today, it's a little, well, it's not late, but it's a little late. It's about 3:30 almost. And this would be the reset of the card would be 0. I went over the whole thing here, episodes 2 and 3, and omitted some scenes, and some scenes were already previously omitted. The scenes mainly dealt with, this is huge. So we're trying to get from episode 4 to episode 11. They're all an hour long, so wow. Condensing 4 through 6 into one episode, and 7 through 11 into one episode. I'm trying to make it good. Yeah, so it's the original PlanetCom trilogy from the 80s and the 2007 version. But it's also a new version where it has these other aliens. Introducing us to the saga room. Yeah, the cat planet. I think that's in part 2. But yeah, the or at least episode 2. So there's it's in movie 3. But we can talk about movie 2 and movie 3. It's kind of making of both. Film back to back. And yeah, we got to the end of the whole thing. I was reading to the end of the whole thing and decided, maybe this season should be retconned a little bit, like return continuity. And even though this season happens, the other seasons can't happen if certain people live or die. Just because otherwise, because we're not going to do 21 movies 2 hours long. It's ridiculous. No, 3 is fine. The trilogy, it's nice. There are other ones out there if you want to do other ones in that universe eventually. You don't have to. This isn't Star Wars. This isn't Asimov's Foundation. It isn't even close. It's more like a Corman version of Battlestar Galactica, with a little bit of Star Blazers and Robotech thrown in there. It's not at all. It's not to be taken all that seriously. It has themes and throughout, and now with this newer one, you have Cassins and all that. And I was thinking, okay, you have this Nathan Char, the bad guy, and in the original trilogy, he dies. The original trilogy, they kill him. In this version, they made a whole other series spin-off story idea where he ends up on this Cohnirri planet, and there was this whole thing, because there was a whole comic book series, and he was on this other planet, and he had escaped again. And he's on the planet, and does all these things, and sets up this elaborate story to get all the generations of Tom Cassins' offspring killed off in the series. It really didn't make any sense. So the conceit, a retcon, a change, at the end of book 1 will be that this main villain that's been a thorn in everyone's side isn't taken to be in that other series. And that other series can be someone else, just as easily be someone else. And if they ever do that, I would need more than one person doing this to do that, to pull that off, to do more of these. And we're not going to get that. I mean, other than Mark's Cards isn't really available that much. And even so, it needs a cast, and there isn't a cast. There's a cast of other things going on, and they're not interested in being in fan films, so that's kind of the end of that. So yeah, unless it's Starship Locations Legacy, then they kind of are a little bit. But yeah, this newer Cohnirri stuff is all on me, and they don't want anything to do with it. I don't know why. And even though it's going to be brilliant and awesome, and that I did have to pull story 1 for about a day when I realized there were some major errors in the very beginning of it, some typos. Story-wise, the continuity was all screwed up at the very beginning. Moved over the credits and all that, and then reposted it. Now it's fine. And so yeah, it's like a I wouldn't say a more mature version of PlanetCom. It's just a better written version of PlanetCom to begin with. The first 12 episodes of the series. Like with the Starcrackers, book 1 is the first 12 episodes of that series. That's kind of what that is. This is the same thing, except those were shorter episodes, so it shouldn't be as long. The 7 through 11 though is longer, seemingly than the others. It's like 50 minutes longer. So the finale is actually quite long. But we'll see. There was not just Char getting wiped out, but Viceland, who was the main character in the last movie, gets wiped out. But there was a lot of extra stuff there too, because clearly parts of that were written during the Flyer years and during the Spartan Daily years, so the 1990s and then the 2000s, the mid 2000s. And we got to have a scene with reporters and stuff in it. We thought that was so different and unique in 1990 something, but then as movies like Iron Man and the others rolled around, they did it all the time. They were like, oh, let's cast Bill O'Reilly or CNN or something, or Fox. Let's throw them in our movie. That'll be cheeky and cliche. And they can mention Alien. It all started with Alien Nation and went downhill from there. Movies where they would throw in people doing a news report about an alien invasion. They even did it in those Quiet Place movies. It's like, well, it was a fake place, or in District 9. They'd throw the alien reporters in there. Like, that is actually really, really boring, and they cheat to do that. So I cut all the news reporter people out. They're not in the story anymore. Beresford is now barely in it as a background character. Because there's a guy named after Paul Mays in this, who's now deceased, because Paul Harold was taken. It was an action character from something. Yet another action character had to be changed. Paul Harold. Harold appears briefly in the first book, though, in the first movie as Mr. Harold. Well, just assuming that's some other guy. So it's not supposed to be the same guy. They can't all suddenly be captains. That's weird. That's like the end of Lower Decks. No. So they're not. They're not all captains. We have... This one's mainly about the Endeavour crew. The special effects that were recorded for movie 1, most of them can't be used, and you're going to have to reshoot them because they're too dark, and they had to be massively upgraded to even see them in the movies. So, do the Kaleen and the Endeavour again, Beauty Passes, ship, whatever, because they'll look better if you have a little more light. I see what happened. You figured if you lower the lighting enough, the space backdrop that's literally an inch away from the ship won't have any reflections if you have it in low light. But the problem is it's so in low light, it's a really dark looking ship anyway. You're going to make it look like it's not there at all. So, oops. Some of the problems with that first story. The first story is just, we fixed it. It's fine in post, but it was very awkward fixing that in post. Not sure how we're going to do the battle scene. Given our technology and ability to do that. But we'll see about the battle scene. Gynat and Silarat sort of switch allegiances, but fans these two other characters, and that happens in the I believe the third, the end of the second one. Yeah, they switch allegiances, but something happens to them too, and it's like, okay, these two aliens, but then they might think, oh, is that somebody going turncoat and suddenly being a bad guy? Technically not, because at no point did Gynat say he was a good guy. He worked for Cohnirri, but he never said he was a good guy. We didn't know anything about him other than his advisor to Cohnirri, so we don't know whether he's a good guy or a bad guy. We don't know. We don't know his allegiance there. It still works. Be different if he said, oh, trust me implicitly, I know what I'm talking about. And then trust me now, and then suddenly he turns on them and betrays them. No, it's not like that. It's more like the character we don't know. He's mysterious. We don't know what side he's on. It makes it more interesting. Cohnirri, though, he's a good guy. More or less. A little gray, but good guy. Gray area. Yeah, so you have, you got Cohnirri and, okay, movie 1, movie 2. Space War. And when you look at the different episodes that would have followed the first trilogy, it's sort of like the Star Blazers, the Comet Empire, and the Bolar Wars. Bolar Wars having never been released until later on video, and they put them out. There were 3 Comet Empire stories. the Robotech stories are the 3 Robotech stories of Macross. Kind of the same idea. I don't need to go into all that. You can look that up. I'm not going to go into all that, what that is, because that'd be a tangent. But in that sense, there's a trilogy of stories. They all follow a certain logic path. These are very similar to the Jack McKinney novels, probably inspired by them. Versions of Robotech. But not so many robots, Transformers. It's more about people and stuff. You have, yeah. I think from looking these over today, that they're, yeah, you could film this certainly. They mostly be the Endeavor going on missions, and the Discovery mentioned later, and the fate of the California and the Nevada, the 2 ships in the story. Basically, find out what happens to them. And yeah, if you kill off the one of the villains, Nathan Char, you pretty much eliminate book 4. It doesn't happen because it's all or it will never happen. Doesn't eliminate book 3 though. You could 2 and 3. You could do book 2 and 3, but I wouldn't. That would be like, half of those 21 stories I was talking about. It would be like 10 of them. I'm not going to do that. 9 of them. I'm not going to do that. I'd see no point in doing the whole thing. It's just too big for one person to put on a fan film thing. I'd rather do other things in the meantime. I'm going to go on to Vanguards and do Vanguards after this trilogy. Sure, I'll do Vanguards. Yeah, there's no reason to. Yeah, it's not Marvel. We have consultants, but we don't have other actors. It's kind of difficult. It's impressive that it's one dude doing all the voices. That's impressive. Not quite Mel Blanc, but it's impressive. This is your producer, director, writer, voice actor, everything. Nobody messes with it, and I keep getting spam calls about Grandma's old book, but there already is a version of that with a voiceover. It's an audio book, but it's done with figurines standing around. It's an audio book. My siblings did not understand that it was an audio book with. It's an audio book, but I wanted to put visuals in there. It's an audio. It's fine. It's perfectly fine. They're talking as though in a play within a play on the screen. Here, there's a little less of that. It's a little more like, oh yeah, they're in spaceships and stuff. All the sets look nice. That sets are all set up. I show you those in a moment. But yeah, instead of showing you after, I'll show you. The various ships and planets and things like that. At least for Mars, you'll have to flip the Mars sets over and put the other ones in there for the cat planet, or you can leave it. It doesn't matter at all, really. Yeah. So the sets from the Star Trek the Legacy episode weren't the same. They were demoed and rebuilt. Well, they were taken down and rebuilt, not demolished, demoed and rebuilt, put back together as something else entirely. We didn't just use the other things, so most of these are moderate to close-ups. Most of them do not cut the top of the head off on a guy and put him in the screen, and he's in the shot. A similar way to the rantcast and blogcast works. You probably noticed the weird oddity of them shooting the bad guy, or shoot the good guy and then the bad guy, and then them just like not showing them actually getting shot. Well, that's YouTube. Doesn't want to have anybody showing somebody shooting anybody. So yeah, we kind of filmed the figure from about waist up and have him go pew pew pew, and then you don't see any gun. Yeah, I don't know what happened. The guy's on the ground. I don't know how we're going to do the invasion of the ship, but we'll figure it out. Without weapons, it's kind of weird, but that's what we have to do, because YouTube will go like, no, you can't show even plastic figures with weapons going at each other. It's already risky when we did the Tribble hunt for the Tribble planet, and they had weapons in their hands walking around. So they don't actually use them on anybody. It's kind of strange, but yeah. I understand that they're plastic weapons, but still. Cohnirri space. More Cohnirri space. So yeah, bonus movies 2 and 3. Dun, 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 dun. Here is the undressed Mars set, the planet Mars scene. Beth Cassin's base, the planet. Ooh, Mars, and then the stateroom and all that. And they did not cut out the Ramsey guy who cacks himself, who unalives himself. That's actually in there. Because it was off screen when he did it. And here we have a fully realized and fully built Kaleen bridge set. It's not just a wall with stuff stuck to it. It's the Kaleen bridge set. It looks cool. You won't really see the floor, which is fine. But that's awesome. They rebuilt. Well, it's only been a couple of weeks, but about a week since the other one, so it was fairly easy to rebuild it. And you get to see the whole Kaleen bridge set, and all the nifty little things that are keeping it stable. There are like these little like pontoon things and spruce metal things holding it stable, and just because it's funny, the reason they got this thing holding the set right there. But yeah, so we have the Kaleen. That's what it would look like. So the fans can build a bridge to look like it in Unreal Engine. They want to. It'd probably be way cooler than what I built. Here we have the bonus any other ship, or the ship, not dressed yet, any ship, or office, stateroom, whatever we need. We can do the Mars one too. And the Endeavour Bridge. And it was reminiscent of that Chimera weird alien bridge from the end of the last movie, because it's that set. I think though that it's a different one. It's actually the other flatter one for the Endeavour Bridge, Tom Cassin's ship. So this story is set a few months after the other one. It was originally a few years. It's a few months. So there you go. The ships are over here. And as you can see, just from looking at some of them here in the corner, they are very dark. So if you film them against a very dark background, you will not see them. So yes, yeah. Here's some of the ships up here. Now the things like the Discovery and the Endeavour are very bright, so yeah, we still haven't done a ships thing. Do the trilogy first and do a ships thing. It is December 19th, I believe. Yeah, so I don't know how much of this we get filmed before Christmas. We'll see. So yeah, the other one's already out before Christmas, and we're 18 minutes in. All right, so that's it on the bridge set, I guess. The bridge set. So yeah, the going back to the kind of the Plantcom story and say, well, what happens to that main bad guy dude? That was going to cause all that trouble like 10 years later in the other story. Or did they just kill him? I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, that kind of solves a lot. It could be somebody else in the next story. I don't know. Somebody else replaces him, the bad guy. But yeah, anyway, so that's so that'll happen to one of the bad guys. But if you're watching this later on in making of movie 2 and then movie 3, you'll know who it is because you've seen movie 1, and you'll be like, oh, okay, that guy was annoying anyway. So making of, December 21st, I think. We have this character that we're calling Maze. Is a Cisco, because there isn't one of this cast. He only appears about 30 times in the whole story, so I don't think we need to worry about it. And we're going to film that, and note that the original Maze looked actually more like that guy, the real guy. Looked more like that guy. But we can't use that guy, obviously, because that is supposed to be somebody else. In fact, I've already discovered a typo that would have been interesting to fuck up, because interesting to screw up, because that is not Alex Everett. No, that is Alex Everett. Okay, that is Alex Everett. Yeah, I was going to say the other guy is, no, but that's David Cassins. No, this is Alex Everett. All right, so there's another guy that kind of looks like him, and yeah, doesn't matter. So we are going to do the scene with the men. So making of, note in the script, I guess, Man, or Jones, who introduces himself to us later, is now Gwendola. It's not really Gwendola. It's supposed to be an alien that comes to engineering. Yeah, and Lopez is going to be Dal Rail. So that'll be funny. Better than a Chekhov and a Kirk. So that's what happened. Okay, so yeah. So yeah, the air is kicking on again. So I think this little test footage teaser is good. It's not a dramatic teaser. It's a teaser, and it goes into the thing, and the air's on. So I think any moment now, Mr. Carey would come in, and there will be filming. So any moment now. So I'm going to end production for the evening. However, we'll be seeing the. We probably won't film it, but we'll be seeing Mr. Story, the Kirk God, tomorrow. So that'll be fun. The Kirk God. Maybe we'll get a little footage of him saying something. But yeah, that'd be cool. Just a little something on the phone, kind of funny. Brian's Story returns. But we have. It was going to be last week, but there was no cast party. There was no meeting. So, man, I thought there was a cast party. Okay. If there was a cast party, she could have gone. There wasn't one. I didn't go either. So we did. Yeah, they didn't. Anyway, are on the set here of this story. There are a few changes from the script. They keep mentioning their children and offspring and stuff, and I'm just not mentioning them because I don't want to make it generational like the other series ended up being. If we ever go on to book 2 after the book 1 trilogy, we're just not going to bring it up and have it only be a year later anyway, and just retcon it into being like only a little bit later, just so we can avoid all of there's kids on the ship or something, and then they grow up and they're on the ship and the other ones are on the ship. We don't need to do that. We didn't need to do that in Starcrackers either. And they took that out of the Starcrackers mythos, the Space Vanguards mythos, when it was early on. But in this one, it's still there in the storybooks, so that their kids can later fly the ship like 25 years later. And it's like, we don't have to do that here, because you really think we're going to do all 7 of these? No, we're not doing all 7 of these. The trilogy is it for now, and we'll do Vanguards. We're not doing all 7 books. It would be 21 movies long. I'm not doing that. 3 movies is enough. That's a lot. They can explore the lore of that if they want. Yep, he's coming in. So here we are, and this is all for the evening. And yeah, so that's kind of it. So we're starting on this really late, and do we want to do more of it or not? The next scene is a weird Starcrackers like breakfast scene. It's about a page and a half. I don't want it anymore. Don't use it in this story. It doesn't make sense that they're making a joke about like eggs and bull testicles. Why is that in there? It doesn't need to be in there. We don't need to know the characters' eating habits. It's too much like a bunch of other sci-fi things have already done it, including Alien. If you're making fun of Alien, that's kind of fun. But Starcrackers. It's a Starcrackers thing. Space Vanguard. This isn't that. This is Cohnirri Space. So I'm going to cut it out. I'm just not going to film it. That's what. So yeah, there's a scene that's edited out. I didn't film part of this other scene because I was like, do we need that? Do we need to know the characters at breakfast? Really? I know it was probably put in there by the cat and cards in the early days. Probably like, oh yeah, this would be cool, like a slice of life. No, they're traveling through space. We don't need a slice of life. There's another one similar to that with the Mars people. There's another dinner scene. It's like, why are these in here? Get on with the story. We don't need those in there. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, there's making out, and I think it kind of started late and kind of done. Because it's dark and weird. Yeah, so yeah. So yeah, it is Christmas Eve day, and we're gonna do a little bit of filming. Yeah, there's been some changes. A scene in the breakfast lounge has been taken out of the mess hall. That doesn't need to be in there. And also, this other scene has been changed for visual reasons to not be two guys talking on a view screen, because that is kind of boring. So we want to, it's bad enough that they're standing still as plastic action figures. So they're not on a view screen. They're meeting them on the ship. They're meeting them in the cargo hold in the airlock on the ship, which makes more sense. So that is what I'm going to do. Just making of trivia and such. When this story was put together in 2015, 2016 to be aired, it was decided that before it was a storybook, it was a series of episodes, 65 episodes. Decided that we didn't want to make the crew like a Star Trek crew, and doing so made it like a Star Trek crew. But we were Mark's cards and I were like, well, we don't really need to have like a physical doctor, captain, engineer, that kind of thing. So yeah, the ship's doctor, she can go. So yeah, so that's why Mearson is barely mentioned in the story, and she is barely mentioned. We didn't have a medical staff in the last one either. So yeah, they don't often see the crew in a sick bay. So with this version, yeah, this is the official version now. So that's what you get. You get your. Here's a scene. So I'm going to keep the scene where he's analyzed as a physical, because otherwise she's barely in episode 2 at all. So it's just barely. Here's another behind-the-scenes oddity. But it was caused by me saying that they're not in a screen room. I decided more dramatic if they see him and meet him. Well, they've met him already. So this scene where he goes, I'm Thomas Cassins introducing myself. That's, inconsistent with this other scene. He knows who he is. Okay, yeah, there's some strange line delivery in here that didn't realize that once you say some of this, it doesn't really work. Why? I'm going to omit a line from Arlene Benton in here. We don't need. Why would she suddenly appear in the room and go, "Oh, by the way, I'm the helmsman, and the doctor will see you now"? No, that doesn't make sense. So she's not in the scene anymore. In that scene, because that doesn't make sense. So yeah, that's the change. Yeah, it is Christmas Day. I'm gonna do some filming here. Christmas Day. We did like last year and the year before. Christmas Day. Anyway, so we have some characters in a meeting room, generic meeting room in the script, page 20, and some dialogue before they go meet the ship, which is similar to in the other story when they met the ship. But yeah, so it's just a sequel. They mention stuff they've already. Yeah, I'll try not to double up on the mentioning stuff from before. Let's see what happens. Okay, yeah. Okay, making of. We've got the wrong camera, but B unit's fine. We have a scene that's weird. If Thomas was Data, a robot, he would say, even if he was Data, he wouldn't say, Curiosity killed the feline. Data called Spot a cat. He knew it was a cat. He wouldn't have called it a feline. It makes no sense. So yeah, that and that would also eliminate this weird doctor line, which you changed from Juliana, because what would be the new ensign be doing in the meeting with the command staff? So you change that, but it changes her line and the other one. It doesn't. It's like you try to force a joke into a line of dialogue about a cat, a feline, and it doesn't work. So yeah, it's not what somebody would say. So maybe just cut out all of that and don't worry about rewording it, just because it doesn't really work in the story. Yeah, this isn't Starcrackers again. So I redid the line so we could throw Mearson in there. I just redid it so he doesn't say it. She does, and she says, "You know what they say about curiosity." That's funny. That actually works. So yeah, I just had someone else say it. We're going on to the next moment here, where he hyperventilates over seeing Saturn, which is weird, hasn't he? Yeah, there's a lot of see what happened. Yeah. So with movie 2, originally the series of season 2, which is what this kind of is, season 2, started on a different track and was kind of a different show and story concept. Never a show. It wasn't a show. It was a Planetcom. It was the other thing. It was never a show. It was written like a show, right? Storybook written like a show. So 63 episodes. Of all those 3, it didn't originally start out that big. It started out as these 2 or 3 different disparate stories, and kind of in the same vein as Starcrackers, which became Vanguards, we kept regerminating and recycling the same idea over and over again. So we've got this First Contact story, which, story genesis-wise, this is where the First Contact happened. They kept reinventing the first story over and over again. So we have this dialogue coming up in the story where they act like they've never seen each other before. And that's because they didn't. In the other version, this is a sort of a retelling of the other story, which is another reason why book 1 was sort of that weird, from the alien perspective, deal going on. Because yeah, otherwise story 1 would have been just a rehash of story 2, and story 2 would be a rehash of story 1, but from the perspective of Cassins and crew. It didn't end up that way. The way it was shot did it differently, so I was like, oh, this is interesting. This is a First Contact, but surreptitiously, whereas this one's a more avant-garde one. It was a slightly different crew encountering the same people, trying to do the First Contact thing again, trying to do stuff like Enterprise and First Adventure, trying to do that kind of thing, those storybooks back in the day, trying to do the comics, or whatever, it's comic book kind of. So yeah, it's like other comic book writers are writing further stories, even though it's all Hellcat, it's all brown and bigger, mostly brown. So you have different perspectives on the Contact, and you have different. Yeah, so you run into this weird sort of, wait a minute, did they do this part? Or they're acting, like they never did that before. That's fine that they're enthusiastic, but would they be all that much so? I mean, it's sure they're in awe and stuff. That's cool, but there's something about it that's off, and it's probably that it's repeating information from the other story. As if, we need a recap of this, they did that often in anime. They would have, often on Robotech, Macross 7 especially, would have whole scenes, especially Macross 7, would have whole scenes in Robotech where they would just borrow footage from a previous episode to fill in a space battle. And it was literally 2 episodes earlier, they showed this same battle going on. That's not what we're doing here, but it's implying that's what we're doing here. It's this information is already known in some way. In another version of it, this is a second contact, essentially. They're coming back. In storybook form, that kind of makes sense, because they're supposed to be years later. but in the re-engineered version, MacGyver version, they are only a year into the future, because that's just crazy to have it be like 3 or 4 years in the future, and make it all generational later on. Ooh, generational. We left out all the generational stuff. But yeah, you want to tell the first story without making it literally a generational epic, a la Dune or BSG or something. It isn't those stories. It really isn't. It's going to be confusing. So I guess, yeah. I mean, I don't know what you. I guess you'd just kind of subdue the excitement a little bit, but there's a line in there early on where they're breathtaking look at Saturn, I guess, and it's like, haven't they seen it? They I mean, it is cool, but haven't they seen it? Haven't they seen the planet? I mean, they're space people. They've been down in space. I find it yeah. I mean, yeah, cool, but sure. It's clearly meant to be the sort of following that Planetcom 2007 in a way. It's this neat planet they went to. That's cool. Originally, there was a story which was incorrect in the 80s and early 90s. There was the theory which ended up in they kind of retconned it into 2010 Odyssey 2, making a star out of Jupiter, which is not possible. But he thought it was. Make it a mini-star called Nemesis, after the mini-star theory that, the edge of the solar system looks different because there's another star out there, and we just don't see it. It's a black star or something. It's Nemesis. Ooh, which is where Nibiru and that other stuff kind of came from in the 2012. Later on, they're just misinterpreting that other story. And it wasn't a planet. They're still looking for Planet X, even though Pluto is the 9th planet, dwarf planet. And they still haven't found it. And they've also disproven some of the asteroid orbits and stuff. Like, no, we were just reading it wrong. We could only see a sliver of the solar system at that point. Now we have more data, and it shows that those things are not that far out. That there's a bunch of other ones like that doing the orbits. Dwarf planets and other things doing these weird eccentric orbits. It's very small and not bound by as much gravity out there by Neptune. So yeah, there's no star Nemesis at the edge of the solar system, but in the original Planetcom there was, because that was the prevailing theory at the time. So probably what's going on here is a rewritten reference to that, and having seen that and go, ooh, look at the star from 2010 thing / other planet / other cool thing that we saw, neutron star black hole or something, and it's like. It was cut out, so now it's just him getting excited and awed about a planet he's probably seen. It doesn't. Saturn, okay. It's still cool, but okay. Yeah. So those other things were debunked later, and the planet locations are debunked, and also they're not technically in the Sol system anymore. It's just another Earth and another planets that are calling themselves that, but it's not our Earth. It's a different planet on the edge of the galaxy thing. So. All of the planets being similar in name is a coincidence. The colonists called them that. They may not even look like that. So yeah. There's some issues here. Also, yeah. So. Making of, again, I have taken out the scenes that repeat the very end of the last third act of the last episode. Let's just not do those, and then we're good. We don't do those. So I left. So yeah. There's. Yeah. So I did that. There. So yeah, you don't want to repeat the stuff from the other one. Let's do the Sam Perkak meets the crew thing, and do that. So just note, we're going to stop for the evening, but just note that this other scene with them, the languages, and they talk to the ship. I don't know what to do with this part right here at all, because why not just have him going to meet with the alien and just have it do that? Because it's repeating the other stuff from the other story. Oh, they used all the languages, and then they used the Then they got decontaminated, and they did that again. They already did that. They already did that. So, yeah, it's the end of this for the evening. Yeah. So this is Calcat, the Calicaster, making of Cohnirri Space, Episode 2, The Intruders. Yeah, there's... we shot a little bit of footage here on Christmas Day, but it was the wrong camera. And all the dates and times on both the cameras were screwed up. So I decided to do a rough pass of the 20 minutes we have so far. The 20 pages of footage we have so far. Rough pass, a little over an hour long, of the rough cut of so far. That's a teaser and about 15 minutes into the movie. So yeah. So I'm rendering that. So the footage was usable. There were some errors. I fixed them in post, but here it's like don't make sure it's the right camera. Make sure it's this one. And there were some issues involving the placement of scenes related to repetitive scenes. There was a first contact scene reminiscent of an earlier one from the other story, done better in the other story. So, same kind of thing happens. Same beats. They talk to the aliens. They go to the alien ship. They comment on the alien ship and its size and all that. They comment on decontamination. Same thing. Meet with the alien. Same thing. It's just so that had to be changed, so that the meeting with the alien, after the view screen, they just. I suggest that you just jump to Cassin's meeting with the alien. We don't see any of the first contact talking back and forth at all. Just as he meets the alien, they're talking face to face. They're on the bridge. They already know each other. That's what I suggest. So, yeah. Just do that. Just put them there, which is now similar to the other one, but they talk about something else. So, yeah. Also mentioning Slayton and Cassin's fathers who have passed in the story is a little awkward and weird, and it doesn't really work here. Yeah, it worked to mention characters that passed in the other series because it was in the moment, and the characters represented family members in an indirect way. Whereas this one, you're not really doing that here. There's no reason to literally make an allusion to someone else. There doesn't really need to be. So David Cassin's part of it in the story doesn't need to be an allusion. Yes, and the names are streets. Some of them are the names of streets. They got McKee Road and Benton Avenue, and some names there. I think Slayton is too, an avenue. But Slayton is a slightly altered version of Slater, and that was Slater originally. And they swapped him for somebody named Slayton from Pine Hill. They were both from Pine Hill. They swapped them for a descendant of Monique Slayton instead of Michael Slayton, which is odd. A different character. Made him black, and made him male, and to put him in there, and did that. But it's like. Originally, Michael Slater was out there. That was one of the consternations of other movies, though. There was when this Arnold Schwarzenegger movie called Last Action Hero came out, this story series was still in production, and they were doing stories of it. And we're like, darn it, we got to change the name of this character because everybody's going to think I thought everybody's going to think of Jack Slater from that series, John Slater, Jack Slater from that series, and not think of Michael Slater, who they don't know, because they're going to have to equate it with something that they do know, which is Slater character. So it had to be changed, even though the original character is based on one of the original creators of Space the Final Frontier, Planetcom, Michael Slater. That was his name. So that shouldn't be a problem, but apparently I thought it was. It wouldn't be a problem. We're in 2024. He could have just been white and been Michael Slater, I guess. I mean, if you can include, but it can't change it now. But Juliana DeVries is also a ex-Jones Swan student name. which is funny. And the Juliana name was used several times by COL afterward for other people, which is weird. Yeah, so it's kind of funny that that's in there. And she didn't even make it to Orange Belt. She was just apparently influenced the writing of the story. Oh, let's just borrow a name from the Academy back in the 90s and use it. Why not? Late 80s, early 90s. Early 90s, you know. It's not supposed to be her. It's just, it does give an opportunity for the Deanna Troy figure to reappear as though it could be one of the Kestra time travelers, but it's not. It's not supposed to be. But yeah, it's a Troy figure because there aren't a lot of figures. They didn't make other figures of other people, so that's the point. Make sure not to screw up the accent on McKee, who has a slight burr in his voice, but not very thick. It's not like Mahoney. It's just slight. Like he could be from England or maybe Wales or something. But it's not thick. He doesn't sound like Mr. Scott. It's not that thick. It's sort of like, oh yes, Captain. I agree, Captain. Kind of like that. Yeah. You know, I'm kind of a pirate. Nar. Kind of voice. Yeah, and they had to explain that the other guy's escaping. They didn't do that. I don't see any reason why you need to download this particular section of video before it's time. Do some more footage on this camera, and then you can download the section of video. This particular segment is just the making of. As for the dates and times being wrong, that would have been a problem later on when you tried to assemble this and all of the dates in the newer camera cards were completely different. You would have been like, oh, where do I find the first part of all of this? Well, now you don't have to because it's right here, and you can just go from December 26 on and know that that's the new stuff from day 4 and on. We're at day 4. This is day 3, so that'll be day 4. And I'm sure we'll get around to doing more of this, but not right now. No, so. But yeah. So I guess this is an update to Cohnirri Space making of. Not so much Vanguard's making of. We kind of know where that's going. This is a Cohnirri Space. It's a real brief. As they start off with this. Doing the rest of book 1, which is the second and third movies. There's book 1. Book 1's very long. Book 1 was originally the Planetcom trilogy, and it became book 1. It was made into a long book. Book 2 was a little shorter, by about 100 pages, so it's actually only 2. And the beginning of book 3 melts into book 4, and you have this weird sort of, well, it goes into another saga entirely. There's because stuff was moved around and shifted, so that book 2 and some of book 3 is basically the next trilogy, and that's where it stops. The Cassin saga officially stops there. They moved everything around, or I did, moved everything around. I did. I was looking it over, and because of changes at the end of book 1, chosen to have us continue from the trilogy of book 1, go into book 2. We're not going to do all 3 of the books. It makes no sense. Just the Cassin saga. In the same way that Vanguard's is just the Clark saga that we're going to do. To the end of the Clark saga. So Prospectors and Starcrackers, Space Vanguard, not going to happen in the animated form. Just the stuff up to that. With that series as well as this one, so they'll be kind of similar. There'll probably be about when all is said and done, there will probably be 6 movies, going from book 1 being the first 3 to parts of book 2 and parts of book 3 being the next 3. There'll be 6 movies. We can do 6 movies. We've done it. We did it last year. With the other series, and we're going to do it here. So we're going to do Distant Destinies, the saga of Cassins, basically, and then it ends. Because kind of got to go into book 2, because book 2 involves the saga of San Akiri, and then his paramour. So we're going to cover that. Yeah, so that's kind of what that is. You can tell where it loses its focus in terms of the book series of Cohnirri Space, and that it loses its focus after 24.99. It starts to go do other things that are like in the series, goofy generational things. Some of that stuff is interesting, but it's not worthy of doing 21 movies feature length or 65 episodes 1 hour long. No, there's no point in doing that, but there is a point in doing book 2 and doing the next trilogy as well. So that is what we're going to do. First, we do book 1. Then we do, follow the schedule, do Vanguard's book 1 after that. So book 1, Vanguard's book 1, all that. It's done. Boom. Next would be book 2 and a little book 3 for the next one. And then after that, Vanguard's book 2 to the end. That's the plan, such as it is. It didn't get canceled. It didn't get ended. It's just it's New Year's Day, and just chime in on that I don't believe there's any filming today, but that is the plan to finish the Cassins saga. And then you have the characters established at that point and can do what you like with them in future Lexicon stories. Not Lexicon, Legacy. As for Cohnirri Space seasons, when really the first 2 books are the good ones, and Little Book 3 is a good one. And yeah, why do the lesser works that aren't as, yeah, don't do those that aren't as good. Would be the Totemus saga in there too as well. And you'll see that there's a connection to Earl in that the Totemus are basically the machoistic male jock bad guys, and they get confronted by the female good guys show up. But yeah, that's similar to an alien race called the Mochlins in Orville. It's a coincidence; they're not related. I was probably thinking of like lizard people and stuff, and Klingons, and they weren't. They were thinking of something else in Klingons. So, yeah. Some other kind of lizard people in Klingons. So it is different. Yeah, so this is just an update on the making of, and we will get back to filming. We shot about, so far, about 20 minutes of raw footage of book 2, of book 1, episode 2. It is confusing. There are three movies in book 1, and it's the middle of, at the very beginning of book 1, of book 1, episode 2, the darker middle chapter in the book, and that's what we have a rough cut of some of that before Christmas Eve, but we're going on to do the rest of that probably tomorrow when everything settles down, and it's time to go on to do something tomorrow. I don't think there'll be any filming today, just because things are up in the air, and so we're gonna leave it at that. But it'll continue with Cohnirri Space, doing the 3 movies of book 1, then going on to Vanguards and doing that, and then doing a couple of those, and then going back to a little bit more. But not all 7 books, just the first couple of books and a little bit of the third one in there. Because, yeah, there's stuff in there at the end of the Cassin saga. We're going to tell that. The end of the San Pikak saga, and tell that. Yeah, can't leave it up in the air. It's got to have a definitive ending at some point. It's not meant to be Star Wars and be 9 movies. It's not meant to be that. It's more like it's meant to have like seasonal, and the message is similar. It's sort of like in Vanguards, where they were trying to tell this specific kind of story, and they told it, and then they just kind of tell the same story over and over again. We get to the other ones, but with different crews. So it's like you kind of already, and once it starts repetitive, then stop. Yeah, which often sequels and follow-ups fail to realize. But these aren't sequels. These are more like follow-up continuations of the characters. These are more like episodic Star Trek movies. And there were 6 of them at that point when the original thing was done. So it was up to Star Trek 6. Yeah, so they're not really Star Trek, but they kind of act like it. Ancient aliens and stuff like that. But not the ancient aliens on the History Channel, more like ancient alien, like space, Galactica type. Humanoid people come back to Earth after being taken. Yeah, the Cohnirri. And yeah, it's not confusing. You don't need to know all their backstory and all that, although there's an awful lot of backstory on there if you want to watch all the backstory making of. There's a lot of backstory. But you don't need to know that watching the show. You can watch Cohnirri Space Movie 1 completely cold and go like, oh, this is fun. Yeah, it's kind of cool. A sci-fi story about these aliens that come to Earth. Kind of like the Galactica people did. But not like the Galactica people in that it's not brooding and dark. It's not the 2000s Galactica. It's more like the earlier 80s one. and yeah, and they got turncoats and aliens and just as you said in the earlier review of some of the characters seem to change personalities, and then you pointed out they don't really, because you don't know anything about those. There's this one character that turns bad later on, and it's like you don't know what he's like. He could be the other guy. Also, we have built the model of the Starship Discovery, which comes out after the Starship Endeavor in my series. Not related to Star Trek. It was already in the works. The novels included an Endeavor and a Discovery, and they were there. They were already there. So that ship is already built. So why not use it in later stories as well? Yeah, and the alien Kayleen and all that. Yeah, so, yeah. And when you do the special effects, make sure you can actually see the models, which it turns out are actually not photogenic, which is funny. No? So, yeah. So you can find a way to make them photogenic. I'm sure there'll be a Ships of the Line thing later where we explore every inch of the ships and figure out things that are going on them, but it wouldn't be as adept as Trek Yards, where they go into how many torpedoes it has, stuff like that, because we didn't really do that. Yeah, so there's Cohnirri Space. They're clearly supposed to be some sort of colony of the Earth. They're not really Earth. They just think they act like they are, and the planets around them, they act like they are. And I know it's not even connected to the Orville at all. It's just a coincidence that they happen to have misogynistic bad guy aliens at some point. But it's like, yeah, it's not even remotely similar. So if I compare them, yeah, it was just to give a reference point for completely newbies going like, oh, should we watch a new Brown, new Calcat, new thing? What is it like? That's basically, what is it like? It's a little like these shows. It's a little like them. It's not ripping them off because it predates them by like 15 years, but it's a little like them. Yeah, so. This is probably one of the reasons that it never got released officially except in book form, because, yeah, these other shows came out later and they were like, oh, they're so similar, they're going to think we ripped them off. We didn't. So we accepted the Starship Locations angle on it, the Starship parody angle on it, and said, oh yeah, it's kind of like those two. So it's kind of like Star Trek. So we just accepted it and said, all right, it's a Star Trek-like parody. Space opera, Star Trek-like parody. And by calling it that, then that's the show it's connected to the most, Star Trek parody. Okay, back from hiatus. It is 2nd of January 2025, and we are going with a scene in the movie on page 26. We have skipped the scene where they make contact and kind of repeat what happened in the last movie. So, and then they do it again, literally right here. This is a little better, so we're going to use that instead. And let's do that. Yeah. Cohnirri Space, page 26. Okay, there's some issues with the way this scene plays out, in that, yeah, the other scene was cut, but I think the problem is that it's static, and it's probably not necessary. At least it's giving us similar data later on. It looks like. So I think what happened is the problem with it is that you have to switch back and forth between the guy on the screen and the guy and captain and it looks weird that they're not I know they're not supposed to be in the same room together, but they kind of should be filmed in the same room together just to make everything match and make the lighting the way it is. I think that's the problem. It's just they're just too far away and they're not close enough to the guy, and you can't tell what's going on. We don't want to have that happen. So I want to have everybody. I want to do the scene over with the communication device. Have him very ambiguously in the corner. So you can't really tell it's not his like little room over there with his console. I want a close up on him and a close up on Cassins and a close up on everyone else. So you can't really tell that he isn't on the ship. That he's in the background. In fact, take that away temporarily. Put that over here. Just have him sort of against the gray wall. Against the gray wall. And then he's over there. And then have this guy here. Have these guys over there. So when you flip the script, it puts them in the shot. Okay, so there. So what's odd about this next line, just to comment on it, is it's weird that McKee, out of turn, blasted in and said that. That's fine. But he doesn't know who he is. And it sets a precedent that he's just... The captain's first officer just blurts out something. He can do that. So I would rather have Thomas sort of acknowledge that. Making of, we've got the end of this kind of like Star Trek: The Next Generation with the don't go down the away team, right, Picard, because that'd be stupid. and then we have a lot of scenes that were edited out because they're exactly like the other book, the other chapter. So we have those cut out. So we're gonna cut to Percac meeting with Cassins in person on his ship with Owen and David and Thomas. I was looking over the dailies that we started making. I started making at about 1, and I think, having gone over the situation that's going on with this particular scene, I think the problem was that it's static and boring, like you commented on there, making kind of comments on that. And that we kind of need to do sort of like was done in the other story, reshoot that, because the scene, so they're actually meeting, so that it's not over a view screen, because otherwise it's the dynamic is odd. He's San Percac, or formerly San Cohnirri, is familiar with some of the crew. Well, not McKee. And it's weird that there's a line in where McKee kind of butts in and goes like, he's an alien or something. And it's odd that he even has those lines in there. And they often, then they're going to meet in an hour, and then we get to see them meeting in an hour. The passage of time doesn't need to happen there. Just put them on the ship. Put them on the bridge of the Kaleen. And say, oh, we're finally here. We're going to meet with you. And then introduce. Well, you don't need to rewrite much of the scene, but as a novel, as opposed to a written story, when you have a novel, it's kind of okay to do that and have them banter on about what they're going to do and where they're going, and it's sort of like they're kind of explaining what they're going to do next, and they're going to do it next. So in a movie, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't have the characters saying, "Oh, we're going to go on this mission, and here's our plan," and go on the mission. It would be more like a typical Next Generation episode where, well, yeah, the alien's on the view screen and it wants Picard to beam over, if it was Star Trek. And then they do, but they don't espouse all of the information about the alien's whereabouts and where he's been and all that on the view screen, because that would be really static and uninteresting. So to redo the scene, you'd have to redo the footage you just filmed and redo it so that it's grafted into the scene where they're already meeting on the ship and they've already introduced themselves. And they're going to introduce themselves. I'm not familiar with McKee, and yeah, that's what I would do. I would rewrite the scene slightly so that they're actually meeting in person on the ship. It doesn't matter throwing in the line about Cassin's saying, "Oh, I want to go on an away mission," and like Picard would do on Star Trek, and having Riker say, "No, don't go on the away mission. Half the command staff is going to go over there." You don't need that gag in there. That's the Starcrackers gag, but not Starcrackers. But here, you don't need that. He it is weird that he trusts the alien implicitly, but he has no reason not to. So he goes, and that's all she wrote. So I will actually physically rewrite parts of that scene so that you can film it, and then I can film it, and then film it, because just adjust a few lines here and there and just put it out there as you're filming it, and have them on the bridge of the Kaleen where everything is straight. Also, the Kaleen bridge kind of moves a little bit. I'm not sure why. It's kind of spongy underneath. Careful about that. But yeah, the bridges we set up for the story have a tendency to go wonky with the rigging for the camera, and make things a little weird. Cassin's was in all of this footage earlier that we can't use now. Cassin's is too far away. He's like he's talking to the air. The alien really looks like he's on the bridge with him. It doesn't. Even in the scene where he wasn't, it still looked like he was on the bridge with him. Yeah, it's just it had issues. So yeah, we'll just reshoot the whole scene. Yeah, scene reshoot on the second. Here we have our characters on the alien ship already. That eliminates several of the issues with where they are. But just saying they're on the alien ship, it's fine. They've already showed up, and so okay, making of. We're going to go on to page 30, which is the scene where we reveal that David Cassins from the last episode died off screen. Yet another example of dying off screen. It happens a lot in these stories. And they're all, oops, we had to get the body and bring it back. This is not supposed to be the same cargo room. It's the alien ship, just because that set is actually really problematic. So that's this one here, just because it's easier to film. You won't notice that it isn't. There's no transition wipes for the scene to show you where it is, so it's fine. So let's do the scene. So even though we started late and they're doing the filming and stuff, I'm going to stop here for the evening because, there's people, the neighbors, the tenants are started arriving shortly, and there will be a lot of noise probably. So yeah, and this is all expository through the middle of this chapter. This is the middle chapter of the part 2, and it looks like we'll breeze through that tomorrow and go on to other stuff. So and then we'll be in the third part of 2, because we kind of shot 20 minutes of the part 2 already. So yeah, or 20 raw footage minutes. Yeah. This is like, it was more than, it was like a couple hours. It was 20 minutes. 20 pages. 20 pages is what we shot. So now we're at 30, 31, 32 pages. Yeah. We're not behind. There's no schedule. Okay. Yeah, this is Calicat, the Calicatster, and this is a behind the scenes of today. It's the 3rd, I think. 3rd of January. It's December, January. Went over the dailies of today's footage. We started late because we wanted to repost the Allocation Missions pseudo-pilot Christmas episode. I reposted it and then re-aired because it had issues. It shouldn't have been put up yet. And it was just put up raw, and it had issues. So, over here at Cohnirri Space, we have some footage with some issues as well. It's doing the Voyager thing. This camera does that. It leans over. When you look into it leans over to the side, this side or that side. Typical of Star Trek. Typical of Star Trek Enterprise. Not Enterprise. Star Trek Stranger Worlds does that a lot. So the part where, when you start filming, probably again tomorrow, and if it's quiet enough, start with the speech about the Queen and the Queen, and have the speech where Santa Curie is suddenly really, really far to stage left, and he shouldn't be that far to stage left. I would just reshoot that because you want it to look good, and then Guynat coming in will be in the shot, and then Guynat can come in, and then do Guynat again, because there's very little Guynat of him being back. So just reshoot that part there tomorrow. You could reshoot it right now, I guess, but nah, that's okay, unless you really. No. Do it tomorrow. The lighting is weird because it's now dark, and the lighting is the ambient lighting was helping with the lighting during the day, and when it went away, it really kind of screwed up. So toward the end there. So that was part of the problem as well, the lighting. And then moving around the camera. There's got to be a way to set the camera so that it doesn't literally, physically meander to one side or the other. There's got to be a way to set it up so it doesn't move. There's got to be a way to do that. But yeah, it was also moving in terms of focus a little bit. It was like it would show the captain guy centered her off to the side, and it would focus in and back up and not show us much of him. Weird. Anyway, so yeah, that's all. Just to redo that on the other one story. Yeah, and just keep going. And these scenes are kind of crucial to establishing what the Cohnirri are about. I realized that they're basically the British model of their imperial empire. That's sort of like the United Kingdom, but the UK has since broken up, and it's just England and the other ones separated. But back then it wasn't broken up. Yeah, and back then when the story was written, there was a Queen of England, and now there's a King. So that's changed. But in this, it's an alien planet where it doesn't matter if that's the case. With the Queen, with them, for their all intents and purposes. So, yeah. So, yeah, it's kind of essential to the story that we have some backstory of Santa Curie. That's perfectly fine. Then they move on and they go to other places. Now, Guynat shows up to break the scene and move them ahead to the next scene where they find out about the alien who has come back, chasing them and stuff. So yeah, sure. So I would like to reshoot some of this page 36, 35, because of placement of the commander guy. Just talking to Casson. So I'm going to do that. Yeah.
So, the docking scene is almost identical to the docking scene in the other story. So I'm thinking that we do not need to show that. So I'm gonna, like, no, we don't need the docking scene. Oh, look, they're on the bridge doing docking. There's a line about locking the door, never letting us in, which is very Starcrackers. Why would they even say that unless it was a comedy? It's not. It's sort of a space drama. I'm gonna skip that. Okay, just gonna skip that. And end the chapter. Put them on Mars. Put them on Mars. Which it took forever, but we have completed scene 3. Here we're over the Mars scene. And we have some Star Trek people playing these other guys, because we run out of extra figures. So, yeah. So let's do this. So I'm going to end for this afternoon. Because, yeah, the pollen around here and stuff, the hay fever or whatever, is acting up. So I'm not going to do any more filming today. And yeah, so that's it. Yeah, I can't do a female voice. The times and dates of this are a little screwy. Since my voice sounds real congested, a wee bit of something, I want to fight it off, so I'm not doing any recording today. It's a Sunday. So, anyway, we have, obviously you can't do voice recording. Yeah. So we have I'm watching the dailies for the second 20 minutes that we're done with Weekend, and they're fine. There aren't as many, but it was 20 pages, but it was a lot of exposition. Kind of gives us the meat of this act of the story, and puts us with character development for, say, Cohnirri, or say, Prakak in the story. It wasn't really technically 20 pages, because we probably cut 5 or 6 of them out, because they were repeating what was in the other story, because originally, I don't know why we didn't do this in edits. We put the book out on Amazon KDP, but you kind of don't need the first movie in the book, because it's kind of like redundant. I don't know why I did that. But it's a book, so I figured, okay, it's in there. But yeah, there's a lot of redundant scenes. Well, maybe you need some of it, but yeah, they repeated this literally the same. There was a scene where they decontaminate. There's a scene where they talk about that. There's a scene where they do the bridge thing. They talked about that. There's a scene where they go to meet the aliens. They talk about the history. They did that. They've already kind of done that. I don't know what I was doing. But yeah, I fixed it. So the version that you're going to see here in the story is movie 2 of the 3 movies of the trilogy that make up the first book, Cohnirri Space, and kind of said, oh, we might go on and do at least the next book. We will see. We will see. I know I kind of said that. Oh yeah, well, we do the next one. We will see whether we want to do that or not. Yeah. So I'm not going to commit to, we're going to, totally do the next book, and then it'll be all over the internet. Oh, they're totally going to do up to book 3 now. Oh, he said this and that, and no, that was completely a guess. I don't know. It could be Vanguard's book 1 is fine after this, and then we're done. I don't know yet. Too soon to tell. I don't want to overdo the whole thing. You had to overdo the whole thing and then have it end up sucking. I want it to suck. So let's just do book 2, well, movie 2 of book 1, and then movie 3 of book 1, and then see what happens from there. So that's basically what we got from this. Yeah. I think actually it's all of the pollen that was kicked up from the yard people doing all the yards and stuff around here in the park. I think that's all this is. But you can't film if you're like, pollen allergy there going on. Kind of hard to make my voice not sound like Mr. Sulu from Star Trek. Oh my, kind of that little screwed up there. Oh my. Yes. Filming will resume in a couple of days when that's over. So yeah, sure. Yeah, I was slumbering. Well, we made out with them a week last week. Got some of it done there. 7 gigs of it, raw data there. And the way we did, I did the previous 20 pages and this other 20 pages is I went through the 2 steps that make up pass 1 and pass 2. So all you have to do is pass 3. Then assemble the whole thing. So I went through there and said, okay, these are the good takes, and here's where they are, and all the fluff is taken out. Like, these are good takes. I left at the end the takes where they talk about the Queen and the Parliament and stuff, just to make sure that there is a good take of that line somewhere in there. So I left all 5 of them and picked the best one. So yeah, because it's kind of important. But are they really an aristocracy though? That kind of doesn't. I must have thought that was impressive, or borrowing from Whitley Strieber's Communion or something. It sounds a little bit like that, but no. Why would aliens have an aristocracy? They kind of wouldn't. I guess I don't know. I just thought I wanted to make it different from. I think all I was doing is trying to make it different from Star Wars, with their like Padme Amidala, the elected queen, and I was like, okay, that's kind of stupid. So it's not that. It's that she's just a figurehead. She's not really a queen. It's just, yeah, kind of like Britain. I'm sure that kind of like Britain line was thrown in there by Marx Kurtz. Probably went through there and went like, oh, so it's Britain, basically. It's England, the UK. All right, that works. So it is like that. He thought it wasn't, but it is. It's not terribly important. They're aliens, alien humans. But yeah, it's clearly not done in the same way that the Federation is on the Cohnirri planet. It's done more like a Federation empire thing, a formal federal empire, sort of Commonwealth kind of thing. So yeah, that's interesting. Commonwealth of Planets, I guess, alliance. But now it's an alliance, so it's kind of a little Star Warsy, more so than Star Trek. And the Majestic is supposed to be a ship, and it's I'm thinking that it's not the same ship that the Chimera A encountered. It's a different ship they're referring to, because they even show the old Chimera there as well that they've rebuilt. And although there's a hint from that in Starship Locations: The Lost Generation, in that the Q lady kind of recreated it in that episode in 2413. So they recreated it as a sort of realm for them to hang out in briefly. So what they have is not the original Chimera. They have a copy on that planet. So that's fine. So we're back in production on the Cohnirri Space, episode 2. I know there were a lot of promises that were, well, they shouldn't have been promises made about other stories, but let's just do this, and only worry about this so far. Yeah, some changes have been made. Some characters have been replaced with other ones because Tuvok is too obvious. Anybody in their regular costume is too obvious. So we didn't want to use them. Picard, Janeway, too obvious. This is just supposed to be Beth Cassins' crew, and best to not make them so over the top that they it's confusing. In anybody watching it that's paying attention would be like, wait a minute, that's what's his face? What are they doing there? No, they're not supposed to be what's his face. So these colored over G1 Star Trek people are perfect because they're not supposed to be them. That's not supposed to be Scotty. It's some other guy. Just looks kind of like him a little bit. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So let's begin production here. Yeah. So there was making of. So there was a dinner scene. Didn't need it. Wanted the neuroses line was funny, so I left that. But yeah, I just had them like talk.
Okay, so no need to show where they place. This is just this. The next scene, they're doing a flyby with a ship. I think we will finish off this chapter because it's just real short. There's like 5 pages left, so we'll finish off the chapter.
Back from a hiatus of several days. Obvious reasons my voice wasn't working. So yeah, and then here we are, back on the 9th, and we'll continue with the filming of the films tomorrow on Friday. Yeah, so we have some footage done. We finished the first of 3 50-page acts. Wrapped up the last 6-7 pages of this and filmed the Beth scene. Moved some scenes around, so it was more like, okay, they're actually Cassin's goes to Mars immediately, which is more dramatically interesting, and then Sandperkak contacts him, apparently also on a screen. Well, he's on Mars, and these other guys are sort of on the ship, presumably, and contacts them on a screen. They're on Mars. Cassin's is on Mars during the whole scene. And, yeah. So it'll make sense. Yeah, it makes more sense than the story. In the script, Beth, so Arlene Benton had a line or two. That didn't make sense. Just to throw her in there to have a line saying, "Oh, I'm here, and the bad guy ship might be bad." No, have Beth say it. This makes more sense. Also, Owen's crack about it's kind of weird, but he's a civilian, so sure, with assumed rank, it's a little weird, but that's fine. It's not quite Starcrackers. It's fine. Leave it. And so that ought to be it. It should be fine. So we're going to go back and watch it. The dailies and be done for the evening. Or John shows up. Yeah. So you probably won't see him on the film though. It's behind the scenes. He's behind the scenes. Anyways.
Okay. Making of January 10th. We had to strike some of the sets because these floors for the sets were not expected to last as long as we had to have them lying around. So they were bowing up and coming apart and stuff. So we had to repair them and then repaint them. So there's these set board things, floorboard. We'll adjust the height of that table. The other stuff's over there. Let all this dry. It was bowing up the sides, creating havoc for camera filming and stuff like that. You can see these are we tried. Oh, I should have several layers up there, and yeah, it's like no, that really didn't work. Yeah. So that's that. There's the sets. As for other furnishings, see. And it doesn't matter because we're not showing any establishing shots of where they are in the bases, so it doesn't matter where they are because we don't want that. We just want them to get to the ship or the show or whatever, and that's it. Yeah, there's the some sets. Okay. Yeah, we're back on the set. Not doing any filming right now because things that are wet are still drying. So we're just leaving. I beefed up the Mars set here, and the floor was falling into the wall, and I beefed that up. I'm gonna get some more clamps. I ordered them for the back of the set. We have generic ship bridge alien ship set turned this way for that kind of thing, for rooms, meetings, whatever ship. We have the bridge of the mothership, the good guy ship. Also the bridge of the other ship. It's both. Because we're cheap. Ha ha! So they're all there. We have reset and rebuilt the Kaleen bridge. Reinforced the floor, evened it out with pieces from the other 2 floors, repainted them, and they're still wet. So they're a little bit wet, so they're sitting there. It smells like poster paint in here, and it's gross. So I'm not filming in here tonight. But I just thought to show you the sets as they are. ready to go tomorrow, I guess. Yeah, and yeah, just these. As far as we know, just these two movies. Just the next two of these. Not movie two, book two, or whatever. Just the third trilogy. That's it. Just the trilogy. Yeah. So there we are. This is a set thing. This is Calicaster on the set of the Cohnirri Space. Yeah, one of the other making of things were all like, oh, we should totally do book 2 and book 3 after this. No, no, we're just doing the trilogy from book 1 and then going on to do Vanguards. We'll never get 2 and 3 done if we push on ahead and say, oh, we're gonna do 2 and 3 as well. No. Book 1 is the trilogy. It's the first book. There are 3 movies in there. That's what we're doing. Book 1. We don't need to. If there's some reason to go on from there, there's plenty of material to go on from there. But there was an earlier one where I was, oh, okay, totally do 2 and 3 and do the ending of Percac and Cassins and all that stuff. It's like, no, we don't have to do that. We don't have to jump ahead and do the other ones. We're barely through movie 2, and we're entering the new year, nearly on the 10th here. We're nearly halfway through January, and we haven't even just inched ahead with a little bit of more of book 2 here. So no, it'll take forever to do. And this is book 1, but movie 2. It'll take forever to get through to even movie 3 at this point. So let's just do the movies from book 1. That's it. Yeah, stop. And then go on to do Vanguards. Also, we don't have a whole lot of action figures. We found that doing this latest thing, and my voice is a little weird because of allergies or something. Something was going around, but now it's gone. And it smells like paint in there and on the set. And so they'll fine now. But there's it's just. Yeah, there's the floor, it was all uneven and stuff. I think what happened is we didn't think that it was going to be delayed for a week and a half after all the facilities at the end of the year, and then pushed off into this year another week, only because other things came up and the set sat there and everything went all funky, and it's hard to film on the sets. Put the characters on the sets because constantly we're going, the floor moved, shifting around, the table's either too high or the floor moved, or the guy's up here and he falls over, and none of the bloopers were funny. So it was mostly, the guy fell over, the guy fell over again, the guy fell over again, he's out of focus because he fell over. No funny bloopers. We usually don't at this point. Okay, this is the night shoot. Scene between San and Orange Claw. Rather extensive scene between San and Orange Claw. And a guy named Nustifer, who you don't know who that is, but he's one of the guys that goes onto the alien ship. Nustifer. And, yeah. So let's, okay, let's try to do this scene. At least this scene. The lighting is better. The whole setup is better. See him, get closer to him. Let's do it. Okay, so yeah, on the set here. Finally got around to having everything ready to go, so I decided to do a little test footage stuff here. It works though, so we're gonna use it in the story. And we started real late, so we're not going any further than this. It's about 8, and the next scene is on Mars, so we do the Mars stuff. But we're not doing that tonight. We'll do it tomorrow, when it's lighter. The lighting is much better in here, as you can tell, but it's still a little weird. It's funky. Voice is still a little funky, but for these aliens that have gravelly voices anyway, it's fine. They're alien. They're aliens. They naturally sound anyway. So that works. That's what they are. That's what they sound like. Now, as for the female characters, well, that would be a little more problematic. So But yeah, this is a scene reminiscent of Planet Com 2007, very old, and the comic book from way back in the day, the Planet Com, the Space Alarm Frontier. The old heroes raid the bad guy ship and get captured. Cliche, and the villain, of course, throwing out the cliche where he goes like, "Yes, and it'll be too late when they figure it out," which is in there too. And I thought that was just a really great line, but it's not. It's cliched. It's all get it, but sure, they're having some fun with it. Fine, why not? Also, I ad-libbed a few lines in there. I didn't intend for it to be COLTMS cult thing, but it ended up that way because in later versions it was kind of hinting at that, even though, yeah, that was kind of just in the background. So yeah, the Dotal bug people apparently are COL, or at least are following. So yeah, it's confirmed that there is COL involved in this. But it's 70 years after the events of Legacy this season, so it's like a future version of it, but still around. And hence they can avoid any problematic characters. And also it goes with that Planet of the Fallen ones where COL was still around even in the 32nd century. So yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's funny. It's funny just to throw that in there. It has to be that group that did it, because who else would it be? Anyways, so the next scene would be a view screen scene with him talking to Sam Percat as he goes back to his shuttlecraft. That visually would not be interesting in the story. I want to keep it, but he should just contact him while about to leave to go back to the ship. I think that would probably be best. Yeah. So yeah, instead of that, so he contacts him. Yeah. Then we cut to the prisoners about to escape, or do we? Well, we'll see. 8 o'clock. We're gonna knock out the bridge scene on the ship, and sure, why not? Up to page 70. If we can. Yeah, we want to get to the end of this chapter. There's a guy named Richards, but we're taking that out. He's only in this one chapter and never mentioned again. So we're going to give it to Owen. Giving Owen a lot of lines. There we go. So, and let's go. Yeah, that's all for the evening then. This has been another shoot on the movie. We were late getting started, so here it is. And yeah, it's fun so far. But yeah, we're going to stop for the evening and that night. I think it's like almost 9. And yeah, we knocked out 10 pages of this next into the roughly 70 minutes into the movie. So in movie 2, maybe 3 movies based on the first book. That's what we're doing so far. We're just gonna get that done. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Scene 7 is the alien bridge, which is just the bridge. It's our bridge set that we keep using over and over again. So this is Char and his crew on his bridge, and yeah, it's the same bridge. Yeah. So let's just start immediately. So, making of note, I guess, thing. Yeah, the character of Vunch got switched again for the other guy. And Sariad is running around the ship looking like Vunch. We can't fix that. Yeah, and since we don't know who Sariad was before, we can assume that Sarid is a member of that same species, and he just happens to look like him. Yeah, and since Vunch was not really that much of an integral character to this second movie at all anyway, we could just do what we did last time we had him, just not mention him. That's what we're going to do here. Just kind of avoid mentioning that's that guy. That's the only way to fix that. Otherwise, yeah, wherever Sariad happened to look like Vunch, Well, we can't just reshoot all of that. That would be like to be somebody else. That'd be. I mean, you could, but yeah, that would be kind of messy. Is it? I don't even know if that's even feasible or possible to do that. No. So I've reviewed the script and the characters to see if there was a mess up or a screw up, a typo with that character. I think because you don't mention his name until that last scene where Yunsal says, Cyreed, do this or that, that actually fixes it. Because you're actually saying, oh, that wasn't Bunch at all. This character we've been looking at this whole episode was Sayreed, not Bunch. And Sayreed is the one that went with Yunsal. Another of the same species. So there's how to solve that. Sayreed is the alien that went on, which would create an error if you included him in this next scene and had him say if he appeared here. Because then it'd be like, wait a minute, he was just there on Yunsal's ship in literally the last scene. So he can't appear again as that character, obviously. So don't include him for the rest of the movie. He's Sariad and he's on the other ship. That solves it. That straightens it out. He's on the other ship. It's a different guy. Different dude. It's not Bunch. Partly because the aliens were interchangeable on Sanperkak's ship anyway, and he goes from being the tactical officer to the other guy. He's clearly the tactical officer. He clearly left to go to Cyreed to go be on the other ship. It should have been the other guy in the script. That was the script part of the script. And also we changed some characters around for book 1. And they fit better that way in book 1. And now in book 2, they fit better the other way. So it's not Bunch, it's Sayreed. And Sayreed is not on the ship in this next scene. Sayreed is on the Dotal ship. So we don't need to worry about him. Yeah. So we have more making of. We have more making of than story here. She decided that our main characters are on the bridge of the alien ship. This is very similar to the first movie, actually. There's a lot of elements that are hitting the same beats, which is why there's no reason to go on with movie. We'll do movie 3, but there's no reason to do book 2 and book 3 because they're similar as well. But here we have a scene where we introduced a alien that is not supposed to be in the crew anymore, and we had him be like this somebody else, Sayreed. So I think what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna give his lines to somebody that hasn't been around for a long time. Reese, she's gonna say the lines, alerting them to what's going on. Because otherwise, why did we introduce her just to not have her appear ever again? What were we doing? So yeah, let's do that. And yeah, just not worry about that other character. Let's pull in these other two. That Benton hasn't been here in a while. We'll have her say some of the lines. So yeah. So let's do this. Making of scene. The others start to leave, and then they mention the landing team has radiation chips in them that make them visible to them. In that it must be something the aliens, the Char people did to themselves or something. I would cut that out because you've already established that they have a tracking device on them from before. So you don't need that. I would just not include that. Because, yeah. They know they have a tracking device on them. And the Char does as well. They can mention that, but the whole background about the radiation the spike doesn't, why would they do that? So I'm going to, yeah, it doesn't need to be in there. It's not relevant to the story. The ship is leaking or something is damaged or it doesn't, yeah, it doesn't forward the story. We know they can track them. They've been watching. Yeah. Literally right there. Yeah, there's no there's no reason to go on about the bunch thing, the change thing, because when you see the story, you're not going to notice that. You're just going to see, when you see the episode. Oh, they've got Juliana is tactical in place that the other one was gone. That's fine. It works. Yeah, it's perfectly fine. It totally works, like we meant to do that. And yeah, the other guy's presumably gone. So, yeah, and there's other enemy units elsewhere that we don't see. There's 40 crewmen running around that we don't see, but there's also 40 Dotol you don't see. So, so we completed all for this filming tonight. I'm gonna end it right here, and next and tomorrow we will do more filming, such films to wrap up movie 2. I don't know if we'll wrap up movie 2, but we'll definitely make a big dent in it. It would be cool to wrap up movie 2. We're at 94, and there would be another 60 pages after that. So there's another. So I guess you added all those up, that would be the way we're blocking this is in segments of an hour. Doing the second edit pass during each segments of an hour. We've done 4 of them, four 20-page segments each. So we've done 60 minutes already, so we've done 4 of those. So we've done 80 minutes of them already. So we've gone on to this is 4 80 minutes, and now this would be another to 100 minutes if we went up to 100. But we're not going to do that tonight. That would be the end of this chapter. It would be 104, a little bit longer than that. We want to keep the files succinct and in second pass, so there's room, because we were overextending the room and where the things were saved and wasting a lot of space on the drive. Now, granted, we just get another drive, but it's easier to just save the space when you save it. Yeah. So, what you won't notice at all with the things put together. You won't notice that they condensed them. Yeah, you won't even notice anything there. It's very similar to the other story, and I thought it was being different, I guess. Yes, there's there's a little bit of repetition, but that's common in Star Trek as well. And I think the difference between this story being a story that originally originated as I was a teenager and created into a movie. Well, the main difference is that you've got other people who are famous directors that have done, like James Cameron's Avatar. It's basically something he thought up when he was a teenager, and Rebel Moon is something Zack Snyder thought up when he was a teenager. Those are different in that, well, one of them is $1 billion Avatar franchise, and the other one's a really, really bad, pathetic sort of Netflix show. And mine is not famous, so I can do whatever I want. But also, I know the characters are tongue-in-cheek. I don't think either Cameron or the other guy gets, or Snyder or the other guy gets that the characters aren't really badass. He doesn't get that. He's just like, oh, I'm gonna have oh, isn't it cool the dialogue they're saying is, whereas these characters are like, okay, yeah, the villain's silly. He's over the top crazy. He's nuts. And no, he's not based on anybody current. The characters in this are not based on anyone current at all. You could make parallels and say, like, oh, that sounds like, a certain incumbent president and his toady, Elon. But no, they're not. I was not thinking of that at all, because this is like way back. These stories go back to like this whole Dirty Dozen ship taking scene goes back further than any of the other stories. This is a scene which has been mulling around since before the Mark's Cards and his version of Wrath of Khan makes good in Vanguards. It's before that. This is before that. It's like the idea that the bad guy is goofy was actually predated in 2007 in Planetcom, the movie.
The spoofy movie was in there too. Same kind of guy. But that was, but it goes back to the 80s in the comic book, and it goes back to the inspiration for a lot of this, which is Robotech and Star Blazers and then Battle of the Planets and all that stuff, where the villain would often be very over the top and campy. So it's very much in the vein of the Comet Empire guy and Deathlock the Gamelon and all that kind of stuff, and Chiron the Backstabber and all those characters from Robotech with Britai and that kind of thing. Yeah, over the top villain who in real life wouldn't exist because he'd be killed a long time ago. Who goes and he like single-handedly takes on a force of incredible odds and breaks into this alien ship. And of course, in the book version of this, we added these extra caveats so that it was more like, okay, he's breaking into a ship that's relatively empty. It's a prison ship, and the aliens also want to take over the Earth, and they want to be popular too. But they have the same problem that he does. They're kind of at the same level, which is kind of what we did with the Cohnirri and the Endeavor in the first movie. Kind of said like, okay, it's the same idea. It's that they're on the same wavelength, and it's ridiculous, but we're okay with that. We know they're not badasses. That's the point. Unlike a Snyder movie where he thinks, oh, this character that I thought of is just so cool because, they work hard and then they have laser arms or something and then they fight the bad guy and the bad guy is really cool because he's not ripping off Doom, but he is. And it's like no. If he's campy, say he's campy. Admit your story is campy and silly. Just go there. Like those Independence Day movies. It's like, we know the bad guys in this are silly. We don't care. Here they're gonna do something silly. It's not as silly as Starcrackers though. He's not Raxler from Starcrackers. He's not our original Raxler. He's the foil, the villain for Cassins. But because Cassins is played more straight than, say, Clark in Vanguards, even more so, he has to be less straight. Well, the bad guy has to be more over the top. Whereas in Vanguards, Clark's the one that's goofy. And he's the opposite of that. He's not straight. He's goofy, weird. Also, what's going on with the homoerotic thing with Nathan Char is he's not spoofing, not making fun of gay people. What he's making fun of is the evil bad guy and his minion sidekick. That's what he's making fun of. He's making sort of a Batman and Robin villain type of bad guy sidekick. So that's what he's not making fun of gay people. Maybe he's making fun of a psychotic villain guy that in a horrible relationship with his sidekick that just like they just like each other because they're like a toxic abusive couple in an abusive mutual relationship going back and forth, which they would probably say, oh, so you're doing the herd thing with the guy. No, I'm not at all. The herd and depth thing, not at all. This story goes back to like the premise of these two characters, the guy and the sidekick, goes back to Pine Hill in the 80s. It's these two villains from Pine Hill. That's who they are. It's literally who they are. It's these two guys from Pine Hill. I'm not going to say who they are, but they're these two villains. The guy and his sidekick, that's who they are. That's literally, they're somebody from junior high. So, yeah, they have nothing to do with anything current. These guys are like from 84, 85, originally. The idea of Char. Back then he was called Burns, though, I think. Burns or Jones or something. But back in the junior high days, he could have been called Carr, or he could have been called, that's Char, Carr. And Messy, and maybe a little bit of McGowan. Not going to name their first names, but I can name their last names. And they weren't really like that, but there was this premise that they were, so in love with their evil plans to destroy the other people in the story, at least, that they were crazy. They were psycho, and they're not necessarily in love with each other. It's that they love power. They crave the power of their abilities to do naughty things to get what they want, because they're villains.
and that's they crave power. They're not in love. They're toxic relationship. That's what they call that now, a toxic relationship. Yeah, and they even say so. One of them, I ad-libbed a line where he says, "I'm not in love with you." The other guy indicates he's not in love with him either. They just love to hate each other. It's just kind of funny. But yes, yeah. So they're not named after anybody. There was no one named Char, but there was a car back then. But yeah, the yeah. So they're and Orange Claw is their center. He sort of shows up in like some kind of Sensei Master guy. Very yeah. It feels like Magnificent Seven, Dirty Dozen kind of thing going on. Except there aren't 7 of them. There's like 4 or 5 of them. Yeah, and then Cyreid is that other guy. Cyreid is an alien with Yunzal there, and kind of his sidekick in the scene, but only because he's there's no one left, and yeah, it's kind of hard to make it look like there's more characters when there really aren't more characters. Yeah, you kind of live it, and then Star Trek would do that a lot. Watch old TNG episodes where they beam down to a planet, and they only have 6 extras. So they have to pretend that this is the whole planet with the 6 extras on the planet. I think now when they do a movie, they can get more extras. Like in Insurrection, they could get like 200 extras and have them running around. Some of them playing hacky sack, kind of things like that, you know. But there was only 4 or 5 for that scene. And they could throw in their friends and relatives and whatnot, fans, but very rarely fans. So yeah, they're and actually DeVries is being included in the previous scene with Cassins there, instead of this other guy who accidentally got included. Instead of him, it actually gives her character more to do, which is just fine. That works. Taking some liberties with my own stuff, why not? Just have, taking some, this character might be better here than that other character. Or this character might be better saying that than this other guy. So just put them together. Yeah, so, I'm hoping that these shipping stories of Char and and Antonio Cervantes will be twisted when people ship this later on. I want them to ship it. I want them to ship Cassins and Slayton because you just know those two are gonna they're gonna get together. But they don't in the story, so don't worry about it. No, just the shipping. They don't in the story. I don't think there's anybody expressing their sexuality in any way in the story. It's just that the 2 bad guys are in a toxic relationship. That's all that is. Yeah. So they're it's the whole villain sidekick trope. That's what's going on. It's like, oh yes, oh Renfield, I love you. I mean, no, I don't love you. Get over here, Renfield. It's like that kind of thing. It's like, or Robin and Batman, Batman and Robin from the classic. Oh, Robin, you're my best friend ever. Sort of playing on that gag. So it is not a slight about anybody. Yeah, we're LGBT friendly, definitely, and it's not a slight. It's these 2 villains are in a toxic relationship. Been very little behind the scenes with this, but I think this scene here where and that's the end of this, where Sandperkak pops in and says we should have a prayer before going into battle. It throws it off. It just throws it off a lot because why would he just pop in? It's about Valley. This is before Fast and the Furious made it stupid and cliche. This scene is probably ancient. It probably goes back a long way. No, it's not before that. So we are at the end of 108, which is the end of Act 2 of 3 acts. And yeah, so that's it so far. Yeah, so let's just end right there. That's fine. So we'll end for the night here. It's been a whole day shoot, and we got a lot of stuff done. We are now into the 3rd act of the 2nd movie, which means the final act of the 2nd movie, the breakup act. And so it's the darker middle chapter. And yeah, so
yeah, we're gonna stop for the evening, and we're up to 5 20-minute segments, which means 100 minutes in, and if you put it all together, it's 100 minutes in. So 120 is 2 hours. So yeah, basically 20 minutes left. So there's 2 more of those little 20-minute acts, which will add up to it'll work out. So we're at what 113 roughly, and I believe this is at ending at the page 113. So as we continue on page 113, there's a screw up, or it would have been one if we hadn't caught it. Slater and Owen are over on the other ship. So how can Slater be on the Endeavor? He can't be, but Beth Cassins can be. So we're going to do, so we're going to catch up with him here and do the scene. So Beth Cassins taking over his lines, because he wouldn't be there. Yeah, so let's do that. And let's go. Okay, this scene here where they're just talking to him back and forth on a screen, and then it appears that there is a battle is over, and we have brought the fleet together again. I'm so pleased to see the orange glow. It would seem like in this next scene there was a transition for the book originally, where Alex literally walked onto the bridge of this ship after they took over the ship to address them, which is more interesting, actually. And he could certainly, yeah. As for the prisoner lady that shows up later, that sets up book 3, I don't know if we really want that necessarily. We're getting near the end of another 120 minutes. But yeah, whatever the next 20. Yeah. But yeah, why does this keep going? I don't know. This is Calicat, the Calicaster, making of this story. You're at the page 123 in the script. 123 minutes in, hopefully not a little over 2 hours. The reason you wouldn't do a nod to Vanguards and Starcrackers in here, and change Morrison and the others and do that scene at all, is because it's an 11th hour villain. And you're often explaining in the other stories how an 11th hour villain like Cad Bane at the end of that Star Wars thing, or having Mandalorian show up at the end of Boba Fett, same series actually, it has that problem, the 11th hour villain. You don't introduce like your heroes and villains for the next story like that, and it's a different universe almost. The Vanguards is kind of its own thing. It's its own universe, even though they look similar. So I wouldn't change them. We don't really need the scene where we see the Marines show up anyway. Just the Marines are in the background, and they're mentioned. We don't need that scene. Just go on to the next scene, whatever the next scene is. Do the next scene, and don't worry about that. You have roughly 25 pages of the story left. That's another 20 minutes after this 20 minutes. And so just, you don't need a reference to a villain or a hero at the last hour. And also you've killed the main bad guy, so you don't need to go on, but it's a Cat story, so we go on a little bit. It's typical of that kind of story. So yeah, you don't need to add anybody to the end. And we don't need to add even the people in the scene to the end that are in the script. Morrison and Stevens and them aren't even Morrison. I don't even think is in book 3, is he? Well, then we add at the 12th hour, the final moment, we add another scene where we get rid of the Silurat and Gynat from the other book, which also kind of doesn't work either. But we're going to do it anyway because we're going to use those characters again, and we wanted a closure for one of those characters. It's just kind of weird that we would, but we want that too, and that's kind of an 11th, almost 12th hour gag. Well, it's not a gag; it's just a thing. Also, when you get to book 3, having Char go to Kaiden, the Auriga, or the other planet, is silly don't do that. Just have him get cacked during the battle with Pura. You don't need to do that. Which changes the later books if you ever have him show up again. It's got to be somebody else. And you probably won't do the other books, so don't worry about it. Just do Cohnirri Space, book 1. We're only adapting book 1, and then we're going to do the Vanguard's book 1. We're adapting that book 1, and that's it. Because we don't want to spend the entire year doing these various stories. And there are other things we could do. No Vanguard's cameo. That would be really strange. It would be like. It would be 11th Hour Villain more than it would be like Deep Space Nine introducing Voyager 2 years into Deep Space Nine, which they did. It would be like that, but not quite that, because it was almost 2.5 years later. It's not quite that. It's kind of like Discovery introducing the Enterprise at the end of season 1 because they were like, oh, we can't figure out what to do next. So we have to throw in an entirely different crew and ship and do a spin-off called Strange New Worlds, which is better. We couldn't just cancel Discovery like right there. They had to go on and do other things. They couldn't just cancel it right there. They had to wait 5 more years. Anyway, you don't need.
So making of although we're technically at the next 20 pages, the last 20 pages, because it was action and stuff, is a little short. Just so happens that there's like a little less than an hour tape, so we're gonna do another scene. We're gonna do scene 11, and there is one minor change in that it doesn't make sense for everybody from the ship to come over to visit with who they've captured. So Beth is replacing Arlene and Jason. Basically, Jason, I guess, could be there, but wouldn't he be on the ship? He's a first officer. He wouldn't be there. So we're putting Beth on the ship and Jason over on the ship because he'd be in the ship, watching the ship. So we're putting Jason on the ship with the rest of them. The space station is assumed to dock the other ships, and that's what's going on. So we've redressed the bad guy ship as the main meeting hall, of course. Again. So let's do this. Yeah. Okay, this story is very similar to that other story. There are beats that are almost the same. There's a beat here where they add a little difference and have Antonio somehow call his brother to break him out of jail. You would think his brother would know about what was going on and wouldn't do that and let him escape. I think it's punchier to not do that and show that, just because that's goofy. And it implies that Yunsal is really shitty at putting his prisoners away. Oh, and then another reason you didn't want to have Morrison is as the Vanguard is he's the bad guy, sort of. Lets him out. So I think what I'm gonna do, since we haven't seen that other guy in a while, that's who frees him instead of him. So that's what I'm gonna do. Scene 11. There are 132 to 152, so there's 20 minutes left roughly. So that's the end of that. And so could keep going. Probably won't. We'll see. Hold on.
So I reviewed the dailies. Mainly the dailies of the stuff where we've skipped on ahead and did some second unit footage before. And there's a thing in the park right now, so I don't know, day 17 here. Jan 17. Redo that footage. That does not look good. It looked like you were struggling to do the footage, and the characters, the lighting was weird, the characters were off, the voices were off. Do that whole scene again. The only stuff that works is San Percac. Some of the other stuff kind of works, but considering all the other footage where
does work really well. You don't want to have a scene where suddenly it looks like they went to second unit and they didn't know what they were doing. So reshoot the Cassins realizes they've escaped scene. Maybe what's wrong with it is that you need to put all these people in the same room. That would be better. So then they're in the same room. Instead of view screen. Oh, they're talking on the view screen. Here's the Kayleen. Yeah, view. You don't. That's the part you don't need. Put them in the same room. Have them in the same room talking, going like, "What happened here on the station?" Maybe put them on the station. Say, "Look, okay, the ship's arrived and they've escaped, and we don't know why. We're going to go to the station and investigate." Yeah, and then have them. And all you really need you got Slayton and Benton in there. You don't introduce Benton, so it's just established that he's there. You might want to read it, have a line in there about Benton. I realize that Arlene Benton is not in the story anymore, really, but we're not adding anything to the story. We're at the 130 page mark, and there's no point in going back and saying, okay, we really need to add some character development. No, you don't. It would be like the 11th Hour villain story from before, but with the 11th Hour hero. Also, in the next scene, you have a space president scene, typical of the sci-fi story. It's very cliched. Do you need it necessarily? It kind of, I guess you kind of do, but having mulled over it, make the space president not be the space president, because that is very cliched. Make it just that High Admiral lady from the last story, because she gets cacked at some point in book 3, and just out of the blue, and it's weird. So if she's got a character arc in this story where she's in charge of something, that's cooler. It sets up, okay, this character is going to do stuff. It is a recognizable Guinan figure, but it's not supposed to be Guinan. It's better than making her Abersmith or Abernathy. It was originally Anderson. Also, the footage that David Lynch died yesterday. The guy who inspired the theme song to Star Crackers, indirectly, without knowing it, the Twin Peaks theme, which was one of the themes in Star Crackers. But that's our next show, the Space Vanguards. So I guess you could dedicate this episode to David Lynch, the filmmaker, but not necessarily Vanguards. You don't have to, but just an idea. David Lynch. As for the Hollywood wildfires, we're not in Hollywood. It sucks. I have no frame of reference, really. We had wildfires here in the 2000s, 2020 or so, after the pandemic, as well, 2018 and 2020. So we had them up here, but So I have it's news stuff, but it has no. If you're wondering what happened, we're not connected to that in any way. We're just not. So we put together some. Let's reshoot that footage to make it match. Reshoot the next footage to make it match. Put them on the Kayleen, I guess. Kayleen Bridge and put them on there. You've done that before. Yeah, you can kind of the whole awestruck at the ship coming in part is it's cool, they've seen it, but yeah, you kind of can't visually show that anyway. So yeah, they're in a room together and not on the view screen. Showing them on a view screen is kind of like for your space figures. Is not as interesting as having them just show up to talk to each other. Do that instead. And we'll talk later. Then they talk later. Meetings in rooms are more interesting than meetings in over a view screen, doing Skype and Zoom. So, we're going to reshoot the scene 12, 132 and on. And they're already on the Kayleen. So the stuff about them going over on the Kayleen, they're already on the Kayleen. Also, I'm going to make a change in that it's weird. Well, with the Donald part, yeah. I want to make that the cat guy, because we haven't, Donald coming in and it's just, yeah, I don't know. Maybe we should just film it as is. Okay, so I've rewritten the scene, so it's a combination of what that other take was and what this take was, so that everyone's in the same room and we're just saying they've met them already. We don't need coming up on the view screen and having them talk. That doesn't need to be there. They're already there. Let's just do it. They just happen to go over there. So we changed the line where Orange Claw seems surprised at the break-in, even though the break-in is implicit if he's there in the room. And so I changed that so it's not Orange Claw that's surprised, it's someone else. And so let's do the scene from scene 12. And let's do it. So this is technically the end of the next 20 minutes, really. Yeah, and in the middle of the chapter it jumps to other dialogue while they're on the ship, but then it jumps to a little bit of this, but then it jumps to the other thing. It kind of already gives away the ship that's been taken earlier on, because I kind of jumped the gun, but I think it still works. What I would like to do is finish it, and so we're gonna finish it. Yeah, so let's finish the chapter, and in the last 20-some minutes or the last. Yeah. So basically, to avoid the screw up a bunch again, it's the girl. She's gonna come in and tell them that he's escaped. It's all on her. So that would just solve that right there. So that's what I'm gonna do. So let's do that. That is a wrap. Movie 2. Movie 2 is a wrap. Oh shit. Second unit did a little bit of this. Movie 2 is a wrap. Oh my goodness. The darker middle chapter. We killed off Silent Rat, Gynat, and Habib. So yeah. There it is. It's a wrap. It's a wrap. It's a wrap. Yay! Yes. Note in the making of a documentary here that David Lynch died a couple of days ago. And you could dedicate it to him. So. You don't have to, but you could. But yeah, the Twin Peaks guy. It's more of a Vanguard's thing, though, as I probably mentioned in some of the making of as well. I'm going over the making of right here, and I thought to add a little closure on book 2, or at least movie 2. Book 1, the middle of book 1, movie 2, to point out some closure-y things as I go through this, because they kind of didn't have on the final day. This is the final day on the 17th. It's been a month. We've been going over the month of production. It usually should be 8 days, but it was a month because other things came up in the middle, including a cold and visits and all that stuff. And so that won't be the case for movie 3, the last part of the act. And I go on about campy villain for some reason. I go on there about how they stop the main bad guy, about like right into the end of the first act. Really, the third act starts and of this movie, and he kind of gets killed. And then we go on for another 25 minutes and do a bunch of other stuff, which is fun. Because the story needs to be forwarded. What's going on with this book 1, as it's called, is it's a season. It was a season of stories in a comic book series called the Space the Final Frontier, and then Planet Com, and then Distant Cousins, and eventually Distant Destinies and the Distant Destinies book, Cohnirri Space. But it was originally
just this series. It was a season of a series, which is why there are episodic moments and repetitive moments. I'm spoofing manga like Robotech and Speed Racer, mostly Robotech and Star Blazers and stuff, where they would use assets that are the same. So often there would be scenes that are kind of repeating themselves. That's probably what I'm doing. That'd be my guess. So I'm saying, oh, this is funny. This other battle happened kind of like this before. With villains, stock heroes kind of being similar. Something Mark's cards did complain about during the making of the book. If they're all kind of similar stereotypes of each other, they're archetypes more than stereotypes, then they're interchangeable. And it's kind of been that way all the way through. The alien, two aliens get switched out for other aliens, that type of thing. We have this one alien that was supposed to be the tactical officer guy in the first book, but he's not. He's this other guy who's the same species, that type of thing. In the end, he's supposed to come back, but he can't be because he died on the ship. So it's actually we changed that to the girl. We had the Sanprekak's girl show up, the wife, and she tells Sanprekak, "Oh, this stuff happened to Gynat. He's taken off." And then there were some that we eliminated the Space Marine character Morrison from this book. Wasn't necessary. And then also eliminated from this version of the story the Mozart's crew and replaced them with the crew from the Mars base, or at least two of them from the Mars base, including Hendrickson and his friend. Just because that connects the continuity better to the movie version. So Hendrickson is given a captaincy of the Mozart and sent off to deliver what's his name apparently. To deliver Gynat and to Silurat. Unfortunately, Silurat has turned, and him and the other guy are in that story. And this would be like if you were reading the novel, this would be the middle of the novel. It would be the middle of it. So it's not the end; it's the middle of it. So it's not a third act villain appearance. It's the middle of the novel. It's not a third act villain. It doesn't apply. There's another villain that shows up. Also, if we ever, I'm not completely opposed to doing a fourth movie of this, just because I think the Earth War is going to be after the planet stuff. I think book 3 it looks like, unless book 3 is going to be 3.5 hours long, looks like book 3 will end with the third chapter of this miniseries. Will end with an additional hour thrown on there to have this Earth War with the and then the Darkrai showing up. So I'm thinking that you might want to have that be a fourth movie, just because you want to split up movie 3 into movie 3 and movie 4, just to have everything in there, because I see we like to do a lot of extra stuff. It's still movie 3. It's just that movie 3 is going to be very long. So I looked at it. It's going to be very long. If you follow the script according to where it goes, unless some exposition is left out, the Earth War with Pura doesn't happen until after the end of the third movie. So there has to be a fourth movie just to wrap that up. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then you can have the other guy in it. It's also fun that we get to meet a guy, an alien called Harlgren. Not going to be confused with Harley Quinn. Harlgren, and his ship, the Kurt Ulgal, which is Ulgal, which is Darkrai. It's Darkrai for Harbinger. He's the Harbinger alien. He's the bringer of the other guy, of Mergit and the other guy. And we have this delightful scene that I shot of this ending of segment, about 8 minutes of page, but it seemed like it was longer. Finishing off Gynat and Silurat, and the evil bad guy dude, which changes it a little bit. He finished off their boss, Havid, who went to the planet. He turned on them, and then they turned on him, and then it was a double cross, and then Harbinger, Harligan, he gets mad at them, and he's like, well, I'm going to shoot all of you. That, all right, and I like that. All right, that works in the story. So yeah, he's a campy villain, and you'll recognize the voice from the Space Bridge. That is the guy from Space Bridge that played the evil Hadon. That's the guy from Space Bridge. So he yeah. So I want to play a character. Who do I get to play? I want to play him. Ah, how about Harligan from the book? Oh, all right. He's kind of like the guy. Sure. That was awesome. They just, okay, we'll do the scene. Right on. So Harligan, yeah. Also that character in Transtech, one of my characters, is not James Spader. It's kind of similar to James Spader. It's Ponce de Leon was his name. Ponce de Leon. As in Unicron, that Ponce de Leon is the name. As in the Lion Prime guy, Unicron's herald guy. Ponce de Leon. That's also Unicron. In Transtech. So, how do I do that voice again? That would be cool. Who am I playing? An evil Vulcan lizard guy. Awesome. Evil Vulcan Romulan lizard guy. I like it. Those are over the top, but exceedingly evil. I like it. So that was a green guy, a bug guy in the other one. So now it was a bug bird in the other one. So, yes. Yeah. So we will strike the set and set it up for movie 3. I don't know how we're going to do the Space War part. Probably steal footage from Transtech and the other Transtech shows. Steal the footage from our own stuff. We couldn't find any space battles we could steal, so we'll swipe our own stuff from the archives. But yeah, sure, why not? Which would be typical of Robotech. Yeah, I like how it ends. It works out, and we are dealing with yeah, it's a fun darker middle chapter, and we introduce the Darkrai, and it just so happens that the first Totemus battle and the end of the first Cassins War and that kind of thing does end in 2399 anyway. So yeah. I mean, if you like it a lot, we can go to there, but I don't know. It's taken a month to do book 2 or movie 2 of book 1. I'm not sure when I want to take another month to go all the way to the other ones. But yeah. But yeah, we'll see. Yeah. So it's not a third act villain. It might appear that way in this movie, but he's actually a villain for later. He shows up later. Harligan. Lord Harligan. And their planet's even more feudal. They have a feudal aristocracy. A meritocracy. They have a meritocracy. A feudal meritocracy. They're not quite an empire. They have they're based on merit and social class and structure and stuff like that. Similar to Japan, which was a little bit insensitive in the original stories because they actually had kamikaze aliens. But now that other groups that are radicals since then have taken that idea and run with it, they're them, but they're not really, and we're not going to show that, so it's fine. Suicide bombers are not going to be in this story, so don't worry about it. Nothing like that's going to happen. No one's unalive bombers. No. Unalive. Control-Alt-Delete bombers. The main bad guy in this story, it wasn't about a main bad guy. It was about meeting different characters along the way, along this contact. The story seems to be about the overall arching return of the Kaleen and the rise of Thomas Cassins as the captain of the Endeavor, and the rise of the Endeavor. So it's kind of like an Enterprise first adventure for this other guy, Cassins. Some more of the planet is hinted at. You get to see some more of the aliens and things of the planet. You get to see more hints that it's kind of like that planet in the Arbiter episode, the Arbiter of Keptera. It's kind of a Captera type of planet. It's very similar. It's probably a colony. It's probably not the direct. It's probably a colony. The Vanguard's one is the other one. Captera is probably one's Captera and the other one is the Key Draconis. This is probably the Draconis one. The other one's Captera, or it's Rebel Terra. I think Starcrackers is Rebel Terra. So, one of the other Terras. but it's also interesting that I changed the president guy. He was originally Anderson. It was literally Clark Anderson from Jung Swan from TMS, from Marshall's Forest. He shows up as the president. In the original story, it was like not Anderson from San Jose State. No, this predates that. It was literally this guy from and Morgan Pullen was the hero guy in it. So these two guys from Jung Swan were in the story, like all over it, and they aren't now. But it's like, oh my goodness, what was he doing? But back when it was cool. But now it's a cult. But back when it was cool. So they're Andersons in it. It had to be changed. So I changed it to Abner Smith. But then I thought, that TMS cult idea where they had the other story and that other earlier story. It's like there was a TMS episode of Starship Locations, because this is similar. It's one of the TMS planets. Clearly, it's one of their colonies. So this is one of their colonies. So why not have the president be someone we all? Oh no! So why not have the president be a certain lady, and have her be clearly, they call her Abner Smith in the story, but she's clearly someone else who had disappeared from the attack on the flyer ship the last time we saw her in the other universe, and she's just the president, and the planet accepts it. It's Kimmy. That's who it is. She's in disguise as Abersmith. She's been regenerated by the planet, by Cillian space, into a younger lady. Still middle-aged, but younger lady. And she's on the planet as Abner Smith. And what's funny is we don't know anything more about her other than this one appearance in this one story. I don't think she appears again. So in the timeline as the president. I think she might appear once later on in book 2, if we get to book 2, but they never reveal who this TMS is. It's better than Clark Anderson. Kimmy. Of course it's Kimmy. It's gotta be Kimmy. It's the Clan Master. Yeah, it's gotta be the Clan Master. That would make sense. It's like, oh shit. Also, note that the evil queen lady is another one of that same figure, just painted green. So it's interesting that the Cohnirri queen and the president of the planet are the same figure. One of them is just painted green. Very, very parallelism thing going on here. So maybe all of the darkness and evil of the cult, that lady became Harsal, the queen of the Letamok, and this other one became all the whatever's left, the purities and stuff like that. But a slightly better, nicer leader. Split the personality, and the nicer one is on the planet. So the nicer Kimmy. Anyways, they don't say that's who that is, but it's pretty obvious who that is. It's like, oh, that's where she went. Well, Cillian space does revive you, so yeah, makes perfect sense. She cloned herself, younger version of herself, on the planet. Or it's just someone else that a sycophant of her that worships her. She changed into her, which is also cool. So it's probably not, but it's an interesting coincidence to think about. And I wonder if that actually would explain the entire debacle of the planet and everything. Like, oh, it's the Grandmaster. She's on the planet. She's made herself the president of the planet. Well, that makes sense. Other king-like oligarchs are going to be president in the real world, so why not have the Grandmaster? They don't say that, though, in the story. They don't say that in the story. Granted, they do not name her by that name. They call her Abner Smith. They don't say that. So, yeah. So she's a different character. She's supposed to be a different character. But clearly, and also it's weird because it's not an AI-generated figure. None of them are. It's Miguel Brett Roddenberry's Lexana Troy figure is what it is. If you want to get one, it's a Lexana Troy figure. As Kip. It's Kip. So we are approaching her birthday, so why not? But yes, maybe we'll try and get the third movie out before that. But yeah, so let's pay homage to that group over there. Not really. I'm just kind of kidding. But yeah, it's funny that she looks a lot like her. It's just a weird coincidence. Yeah. It isn't, but it's so weird because I like the coincidence. It's funny. It is also close to Mark Cards' birthday in February, and a little bit later in February it'll be my late mother's birthday, and on Valentine's Day, and also Timinus Prime is also in early February, 6th. I have a lot of Februarys, a lot of Februarys. So yeah, very interesting. Yes. But yeah, I had to throw the president lady in there and make it a lady president, which is also sort of winking at them, saying like, "Oh yeah, what happened? There was almost a lady president over in this universe, but the other one, there was a lady president. Yeah. There should be a lady president. They shouldn't be afraid of that."